Hey everyone, today I'll be showing you how to create this tutorial service where you're basically showing the users where to go, and while they're traveling from one point to the next, it'll tell them where to go next, and you'll also get this notification that says add this game to your favorites. And this really makes it easy for players to come back to your game, and it'll boost the retention rates for your game and make your game more likely to be played by other players. So let's get started. What we're going to do first is under workspace, we're going to create a folder and we're going to call it the parts folder. And this part folder, we're going to put inside of it a bunch of different parts that we want the player to touch. So I'm going to take this part right here that I added. I'm going to make sure it's anchored. And I'm going to drag this part into the parts folder. And then I'm going to press Control D. So I have multiple of these parts. So I have more of them here. I'm going to add a few more. Right, and then I'm going to duplicate a few more here. Okay, so I got these parts here, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add it in here a script, and underneath that script I'm going to add another script. So I have two scripts here. Make sure this one is not enabled, right? And then, so we got these two scripts. This one's not enabled, this one's enabled. And what this first script does basically is that it takes this child script here that actually draws the beam from one part to another, and it will go through all the parts that are inside of this folder. It'll go through all these parts and it'll copy this script into each of these parts, so that each part, when stepped on, will basically create the arrow from that part to the next part, right? Basically, when you look at this script, what it does is it copies basically a beam that we have inside of server storage, which we're going to create next. And this beam is basically going to be attached to the attachment of each part from one part to the next. And let's do that now. So we got this part basically that copies the beam, and it attaches it to the part that's being stepped on, and attaches it to the other part, and it keeps doing that for every part. And so now let's create the beam. Okay, so now to create the beam, all we're gonna do is basically just go in server storage, click beam. And that beam will need to have these settings, right? The brightness needs to be 1, enabled needs to be checked, light emission 0, light influence 0, and texture length 6. You might need to play around with the texture length to make it longer or shorter depending on the distance that or of your game's map, basically from one spot to another that you're drawing the arrows from. If you want to have more arrows or less arrows, and how much they should be stretched out. Right, and then how fast the arrow should be traveling. That's the texture speed. Texture mode, make sure it's set to static. And then for transparency, you need to click on this arrow and make sure that it's 0 on this side and 1 on this side, right? And then the rest of the settings are basically attachment 0, 1, 0. Segments, you need to make sure it's 10. With the width, I make 4. Width 1 is also 4, and check the face camera option, right? Once you do that, now for texture, I've selected the green arrow texture that I showed you, but let's say I wanted to choose a different texture. I'm going to just quickly show you how to add more textures. So I'm going to duplicate this beam just to create another copy of it. I'm just going to call this one beam old, and then this beam, I'm going to copy a different texture just to show you how to do that. So I'm going to go under toolbox, and under toolbox I'm going to choose model. I'm going to select on textures. Now there's all these different textures in here that you can choose from. I'm going to go with this texture pack v2 by dev for hire. I'll add that texture pack in, and maybe let's copy this texture right here. All right, let's copy this texture ID. Then we go under back to our beam. We're going to click on the texture and let's hit play. Actually, we need to hit play right where we were at. Where are the Okay, you know what? I'm gonna delete the texture pack. It's taking up too much room. Or I'm gonna just move the texture pack a little bit to the side because it's covering the whole field of view. So now that we've done that, let's hit play here. We're gonna go and step on this. Now it should be the lava that's pointing from one point to another, right? If you want that to be the texture, and that's how you do the drawing of the arrows that tells you where to go. Now if you don't want lava, you want the arrow, then you can just choose a picture of an arrow. You can just upload a picture of an arrow with a transparent background and put that for textures instead. I'll also give you a link to this file that I've showed you here in the video so that you can go to my website and get it for free. They'll come with the green arrow that I've shown for textures, and that's it. Checkpoint. We step on this one. It's taking us to this point here. Okay, so we stepped on it. It's taking us to the next checkpoint, which is this checkpoint. We go here. It's taking us to this checkpoint next. It's taking us to this checkpoint, so on and so forth. It tells us to go there, right? And that's how we do. Now let's create the part that says, do you want to favorite the game? So we're just going to go to start a player and add a local script in here. Call that local script favorite the game and put this script in there. And what it does is 10 seconds after the player joins, they're going to get this prompt that says, do you want to favorite the game and add it to your favorites, right? So let's hit that. Okay, we're going to wait 20 seconds here. And basically we should get that prompt. There you go. That's basically it.